Hey guys, tonight we begin with a journey to the sun-baked streets of ancient Ur, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers cradle a city buzzing with life. Picture this. You're waking up in a mud brick house, the air thick with the smell of barley porridge and the distant bleat of goats. It's around 3000 BCE, and you're a resident of this Sumerian metropolis, maybe a scribe or a trader, caught in a world where stars guide everything from crops to taxes. Your back aches from sleeping on a reed mat, and the thought of navigating Ur's chaos makes you groan. Spoiler alert, you're not exactly living the royal life, and breakfast might be your only calm moment. I'm so glad you've chosen to join me tonight. If you don't mind, I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from, and what time of day it is for you right now. Feel free to leave a comment. And let me know, it's always such a delight to see the diverse community of history enthusiasts gathered here. If you enjoy this style of calm, immersive tales from the past, go ahead and click that subscribe button so you don't miss the next installment. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes, blinking against the faint dawn light filtering through a small, high window. The room is compact, its walls made of sun-dried mud bricks, cool and rough under your fingers. You're sprawled on a woven reed mat, a wool blanket tangled around your legs, and the air feels heavy, already warm with the promise of another sweltering day. Outside, Ur stirs muffled voices, the clatter of clay pots, the insistent bleat of a goat demanding breakfast. Your home is modest, one of many in this sprawling city-state, nestled near the Euphrates' fertile banks. You sit up, rubbing your stiff neck, and mutter, "If this is civilization, I want a softer bed." The room is sparsely furnished, but lived in. A clay jar of water sits in the corner, next to a low wooden table holding a bowl of barley porridge, your breakfast, left by your sister before she headed to the market. A reed basket holds a few flatbreads, baked yesterday, their edges hard but edible. You splash water on your face from the jar, the coolness a brief mercy, and pull on a linen kilt. Its weave scratchy but light enough for Ur's heat. You're used to modern comforts, so this feels like wearing a dish rag, but it's practical. You grab a flatbread, tearing off a piece, its grainy texture chewy and faintly nutty. Breakfast of scribes, you whisper, chewing slowly, already wondering what the day will bring. Let's set the scene with some history. Ur was a powerhouse of ancient Sumer, a city-state thriving around 3000 BCE as a hub of trade, religion, and administration. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological digs reveal a bustling urban center with mud brick houses, temples, and markets, supported by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Its people, from scribes to farmers, lived under a complex system where taxes in grain, livestock, or labor funded temples and kings. Ur's residents were innovative, using clay tablets for records and observing stars to track time, crops, and even taxes. You're part of this world now, waking to a day of navigating its chaos, and it's more organized than it looks. You step outside, the sun just cresting the horizon, bathing Ur's streets in a golden haze. The city is a maze of narrow alleys, houses stacked close, their flat roofs cluttered with drying reeds or sleeping mats. You pass a potter shaping clay jars, his hands slick with mud, and a weaver threading wool on a loom, her fingers quick despite the early hour. The market's already humming, stalls laden with barley, fish, and dates, vendors shouting over the bleat of sheep. The air smells of dust, river damp, and roasting bread, a sensory overload that makes you dizzy. Ur's like a farmer's market on steroids. You mutter, dodging a cart piled with reeds, your flatbread still in hand. Your neighbor, a grizzled trader with a wool cap, waves you over. He's sipping beer from a clay cup, its straw bobbing, and offers you a sip. You hesitate, thinking of your morning porridge, but take a pull, the sour, grainy brew waking you up. Early for beer, you say, and he laughs, saying it's breakfast and you are. He's headed to the ziggurat, the massive step temple looming over the city, to check on tax records tied to last night's stars. You're curious, asking why stars matter, and he shrugs, saying they mark the seasons, the taxes, the God's will. You're not sure you buy the divine part, but you nod, muttering, "Stars for taxes?" That's a new one. His grin follows you as you head toward the market, your day unfolding. The streets lead to the city's heart, where the ziggurat's shadow falls, its mud brick tiers rising like a stairway to the sky. You pass a scribe school, where boys etch clay tablets with reed styluses, their teacher barking corrections. A fisherman unloads tilapia from a reed boat, its scales glinting, while a baker stacks flatbreads by a clay oven, their heat shimmering. You're assigned to help at the market today, maybe tallying barley or trading for the temple's tax collectors. Great. Am a tax intern now? You whisper, clutching your bread, dreading the math but intrigued by the star's roll. The city's pulse trade, faith, food surrounds you, and you're starting to feel its rhythm. Hey, race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerians often slept on their flat roofs to escape the stifling heat of mud brick houses, using reed mats under the stars. You overheard your sister joking about star bed gossip with neighbors last night, and you're tempted to try it, if you can avoid rolling off. Roof camping? Sumerians were wild. You mutter, nibbling your flatbread. The idea of stargazing as a nightly routine is oddly charming, and you make a mental note to drag your mat up tonight. Maybe catch a glimpse of the tax-counting stars yourself. Your market shift looms, and you weave through stalls, the crowd thickening. Merchants barter for copper, wool, and fish, their voices sharp over the clink of clay tokens. You spot a priest in a fringed robe, his tablet etched with star patterns, and wonder if he's the one linking taxes to the sky. The ziggurat's presence feels heavy, a reminder of the gods and kings who rule your grain. You're not sure how stars fit into your barley or beer, but you're learning fast, each step pulling you deeper into Ur's world. Taxes by starlight? In and over my head. You mutter, finishing your bread, the market's chaos swallowing you whole. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over the daily lives of Ur's residents, and whether their households were as tightly knit or diverse as the archaeology suggests. Some point to house layouts and family graves to argue for small, close families sharing spaces like yours. Others cite trade records and mixed artifacts to suggest larger, blended households, with kin and workers under one roof. Historians love to debate this, sifting through room sizes and burial goods for clues. You're too busy dodging goats to care about the census, but you're grateful for your sister's porridge, whether she's kin or just a roommate. The morning stretches, the sun climbing higher, turning Ur's streets into an oven. You're counting the minutes until your market task, hoping for shade and maybe a sip of beer. The ziggurat looms, its priests and stars waiting, and you think about your breakfast, the city, the taxes tying it all together. Ur's not just a place, it's a machine, fueled by grain, guided by the sky, and you're a small but vital part. You clutch your empty bread hand, muttering, "Let's survive the market first." The day waits, and you're ready, dreams of stars and taxes flickering in the rising heat. You're weaving through the bustling market of Ur, the midday sun baking the mud brick stalls and turning the air into a shimmering haze. It's around 3000 BCE, and your morning helping tally barley sacks has left you sweaty, your linen kilt clinging to your legs like a second skin. The flatbread and beer you grabbed for breakfast are a distant memory, and the market's chaos vendors shouting, goats bleating, clay tokens clinking has your head spinning. You're on your way to meet a scribe named Enki, who promised to explain why the Sumerians count stars to track taxes, a puzzle that's been nagging you since your neighbor's cryptic comment. You clutch a reed stylus borrowed from the scribe school, muttering, "If this involves math, I'm running back to the ramps." The stars roll and your barley's fate is calling, and you're ready to unravel it. The market pulses around you, stalls piled with fish, dates, and wool, merchants haggling with sharp gestures. You dodge a cart of clay jars, their rims glinting, and pass a baker stacking flatbreads, their nutty scent making your stomach growl. Enki's stall is tucked near the ziggurat's shadow, a low table covered with clay tablets etched with wedge-shaped marks. He's a wiry man with a shaved head, his fingers stained with clay, and he waves you over, his eyes bright with the kind of enthusiasm that screams trouble. "Sit," he says, handing you a clay cup of beer. It's straw bobbing. You take a sip, the sour fizz waking you up, and mutter, "Beer before taxes?" I'm listening. You settle on a reed mat, ready for answers. Let's set the scene with some history. The Sumerians were pioneers of timekeeping, using star observations to manage their complex society, including taxation. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological evidence, like clay tablets from Ur, shows that priests and scribes tracked celestial cycles' lunar phases, star risings to mark seasons for planting, harvesting, and collecting taxes in grain, livestock, or labor. Taxes funded temples, kings, and public works, and stars provided a reliable calendar when rivers and weather were unpredictable. By aligning tax collection with celestial events, Sumerians ensured timely payments, tying earthly wealth to the heavens. You're about to dive into that system, and it's weirder than you thought. Enki leans forward, his tablet etched with star patterns and numbers, and starts explaining. "Stars tell us when to collect," he says, pointing to a wedge marking the rising of a bright star, Mul Dilgan, which signals the harvest season. You squint, trying to follow, and he simplifies. When certain stars appear, farmers bring barley, shepherds deliver lambs, and traders pay in copper. You're impressed, but also overwhelmed, muttering, "So, taxes wait for a cosmic green light?" Enki nods, saying the gods set the stars' paths, and priests read them to keep Ur's wealth flowing. You're not sure about divine schedules, but the idea of stars dictating your barley's due date is oddly cool. You try reading the tablet, gripping the stylus like it's a lifeline, but the wedges blur into a cryptic mess. Enki hands you a practice tablet, a soft clay square, and shows you how to press the stylus for a tax tally: 1 wedge for a sack of barley, 2 for a sheep. You try, but your wedge looks like a squashed bug, and you mutter, "ID bankrupt you are with this." Enki laughs, saying scribes train years to track stars and taxes, their tablets guiding the temple's coffers. You're awed by the precision stars in the sky, wedges on clay, all to keep the city fed and the king happy. This is accounting with a side of astrology. You whisper, wiping clay from your fingers. Hey, race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerians sometimes named star constellations after tax-related gods, like Mul Ninmah, linked to grain offerings, believing they watched over wealth. Enki mentions this, pointing to a tablet sketch of Ninmah's stars, saying farmers pray to her when taxes are due. You're tickled, imagining a cosmic tax collector twinkling overhead, and mutter, "Even the stars want my barley?" The idea of gods moonlighting as accountants is wild, and you make a mental note to squint at the sky tonight, maybe spot Ninmah's glare. You're starting to see why stars aren't just lights, they're Ur's tax clock. Enki pulls out another tablet, this one listing last season's taxes: sacks of barley, jars of oil, bolts of wool, all tied to star risings. He says priests on the ziggurat watch the sky, noting when stars like Mul Dilgan appear, then signal scribes to collect. You ask why stars, not just the moon, and he explains, stars are steadier, their patterns fixed, while the moon shifts too fast for long-term planning. You're impressed, thinking of modern calendars, and mutter, Sumerians had Google Calendar in the sky. Enki doesn't get the joke, but he offers you a date from a basket. It's sticky sweetness, a reward for listening. You chew, the caramel depth grounding you in this star-driven world. The market swirls around you, vendors closing stalls as the sun climbs, their voices fading into a hum. You think about your breakfast flatbread, the barley it came from, now tied to stars you've never noticed. Enki's tablets make it clear. Every sack, every sheep, every tax in Ur follows the heavens, a system that's both genius and baffling. You're starting to feel the city's pulse, grain, trade, faith, all sync to the sky. You pass the beer jug back, its straw soggy, and mutter, stars run this place better than I do. Enki grins, tucking his tablets away, and you're ready to see more of this cosmic tax game. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over whether star observations were directly used for tax collection or if they mainly supported agricultural timing, with taxes as a byproduct. Some point to tablets linking star risings to harvest dues to argue for a direct celestial tax system, suggesting priests wielded star-based authority. Others contend stars set the calendar, but scribes relied more on lunar cycles or local markers for taxes, citing varied records across cities. Historians love to debate this, analyzing tablet inscriptions and star charts for clues. You're too busy wiping clay off your hands to care about the fine print, but you're grateful for Enki's lesson, because it's making Ur's sky feel alive. The market day stretches on, the ziggurats' shadow shifting as you prepare to help with more tax tallies. You thank Enki, slipping him a crumb of your flatbread as a token, and head back into the crowd, the scribe's stall fading behind you. You think about the stars, the tablets, the barley sacks waiting to be counted. The sky, you're learning, isn't just a backdrop, it's Ur's ledger, a cosmic map guiding your city's wealth. You clutch your stylus, muttering, stars make the taxes worth it. The market waits, and you're ready, dreams of wedges and constellations simmering in the heat. You're hunched over a low table in a cramped scribe school near Ur's market, the late morning sun filtering through a reed curtain, casting dappled shadows on the mud brick walls. It's around 3000 BCE, and your morning navigating the market's chaos and learning from Enki about stars guiding taxes has left you curious but frazzled, your linen kilt dusted with clay from handling barley sacks. The flatbread you ate is a fading memory, and now you're here, tasked with learning to scribe tax records on clay tablets, a job that sounds simple but feels like deciphering a cosmic code. You're gripping a reed stylus, its tip damp with clay, muttering, if I break this tablet, I'm blaming the stars. The link between Ur's wealth and the sky is about to get real, and you're ready to etch it into history. The school is a hive of activity. Young boys scribe apprentices scratching tablets with styluses. Their teacher, a stern woman named Inanna, barking corrections over the hum of voices. The air smells of damp clay, ink, and the faint tang of the Euphrates drifting through the window. Inanna looms over you, her braided hair gleaming with oil, and hands you a soft clay tablet, its surface smooth as a river stone. Record a tax, she says, pointing to a tablet etched with star patterns and wedges, a tally of barley owed when Mul Dilgan rises. You swallow, your hands shaky, and mutter, I'm a traitor, not a poet. She smirks, settling beside you, ready to guide your fumbling attempt. Let's set the scene with some history. The Sumerians were masters of record keeping, using clay tablets inscribed with cuneiform to track everything from taxes to trade. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological digs in Ur reveal thousands of tablets detailing tax records. Barley, sheep, will often tied to celestial cycles like star risings, which marked harvest and tax seasons. Scribes, trained from childhood, used a base 60 math system to tally wealth, their tablets stored in temples or palaces to manage the city's economy. These records, baked or sun-dried, linked earthly goods to the stars, ensuring the king and gods got their share. You're stepping into that world now, and it's more intricate than you expected. Inanna points to the star tablet, explaining that Mul Dilgan's rising last week signaled a tax due from farmers' 10 sacks of barley per field. Your job is to etch the tally, one wedge for each sack, plus symbols for the farmer's name and the star. You press the stylus into the clay, aiming for a clean wedge, but it comes out lopsided, like a squashed reed. Great, I've invented abstract art. You mutter, wiping sweat from your brow. Inanna sighs, guiding your hand to angle the stylus, and your next wedge is sharper, almost respectable. You etch 5 wedges, then fumble the farmer's name lull, a common one. Your marks wobbly but readable. You're starting to feel the weight of each wedge, a piece of Ur's wealth carved under the star's watch. You glance at the apprentices, their tablets neater, and ask Inanna why stars matter for taxes. She explains that priests on the ziggurat track constellations, their risings setting the calendar for planting, harvesting, and taxing. Without stars, she says, the city would miss its dues, the temples would starve, and the gods would frown. You're intrigued, picturing priests squinting at the sky, but you mutter, can't they just use a sundial? Inanna ignores your quip, handing you a baked tablet listing last month's taxes: barley, goats, oil, all tied to different stars. You're awed by the system, a cosmic ledger that keeps Ur's granaries full, and you mutter, this is accounting with a telescope. Hey, race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerian scribes sometimes paid their apprentices with beer rations, a perk for enduring years of tablet etching drudgery. Inanna mentions this as she corrects a boy's tablet, saying her students get a jug weekly if they don't smudge. You're tickled, imagining a kid chugging beer after class, and mutter, beer for homework? Sign me up. The idea of Sumerians running a brewery for interns is hilarious, and you make a mental note to barter for a jug later. Maybe claim you're an apprentice for a day. You're starting to see why scribes stick with this gig, despite the clay under their nails. You try another tablet, etching a tax for 3 sheepode. When Mul shines, your wedge is steadier now. The clay's soft, yielding under your stylus, but you press too hard, cracking the edge. Oops, you whisper, hoping Inanna doesn't notice. She does, but her scowl softens, saying mistakes are fixed by smoothing the clay before it dries. You rework the tablet, your fingers caked with mud, and manage a decent tally. The sheep wedge is small but clear. You're proud, even if your hand's cramping, and you mutter, I'm basically Ur's tax guy now. Inanna nods, setting your tablet to dry in the sun. It marks a tiny piece of the city's starry wealth. The school hums around you, boys whispering over their tablets, the market's noise filtering through the curtain. You think about your breakfast flatbread, the barley it came from, now etched on clay under Mul Dilgan's gaze. Enki's lesson about stars guiding taxes makes sense here. Every wedge, every sack, every star is part of Ur's machine, feeding temples, kings, and gods. You ask Inanna if scribes ever cheat, and she frowns, saying the stars see all, and priests check tablets against ziggurat records. You're skeptical, muttering, stars as snitches? Harsh. But you're starting to respect the system, its precision tying your daily bread to the heavens. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over the accuracy of Sumerian tax records and whether scribes inflated or underreported tallies for personal gain. Some point to consistent tablet counts across Ur's archives to argue for rigorous oversight, with priests cross-checking via star data. Others cite rare discrepancies in grain totals to suggest occasional fudging, perhaps to favor allies or dodge temple audits. Historians love to debate this, analyzing tablet errors and priestly roles for clues. You're too busy scrubbing clay off your stylus to care about the scandals, but you're grateful for Inanna's sharp eye, because your tablet's at least honest. The morning ends, the sun high as Inanna sends you off with a nod, keeping your tablet for the temple's records. You thank her, slipping her a date from your pouch as a bribe for not yelling at your cracks, and head back to the market, the school's hum fading behind you. You think about the wedges, the stars, the barley sacks waiting to be counted. Clay tablets, like your beer and bread, are a thread in Ur's tapestry, a quiet record of wealth under the sky's gaze. You clutch your stylus, muttering, "Wedges make the stars worth it." The market waits, and you're ready, dreams of clay and constellations simmering in the heat. You're standing at the base of Ur's great ziggurat, the evening sky deepening to a velvet blue as the first stars prick through the twilight. It's around 3000 BCE, and your day navigating the market, scribing tax records on clay tablets, and dodging goats has left you dusty and curious, your linen kilt stiff with sweat. The flatbread and beer you grabbed at lunch are long gone, and now you're here, tasked with joining a priest to observe the stars that guide Ur's taxes, a job that sounds mystical but feels like a hike up a cosmic staircase. You clutch a clay tablet borrowed from the scribe school, muttering, "If I trip on these steps, I'm blaming the gods." The ziggurats' starlit secrets are calling, and you're ready to climb into the sky. The ziggurat looms above, its mud brick tiers stacked like a giant staircase, its summit crowned with a shrine that glows faintly under torchlight. The air is cool, scented with river damp and burning reeds, and the city hums below vendors closing stalls, families sharing flatbreads. The Euphrates murmur a soft undertone. A priest named Shamash, his fringed robe swaying, beckons you to follow, his reed stylus tucked into a belt woven with blue threads. "Keep up," he says, starting the climb, his sandals slapping the steps. You take a deep breath, your legs already protesting, and mutter, "This better come with a star view bonus." You start ascending, the city shrinking with every step. Let's set the scene with some history. The ziggurat of Ur was a religious and administrative hub, central to Sumerian life around 3000 BCE. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological evidence shows ziggurats were used for rituals and observations, with priests tracking stars to set calendars for agriculture, festivals, and taxes. Stars like Mul Dilgan marked harvest seasons, signaling when to collect barley or sheep, ensuring the temple and king's coffers stayed full. Priests, trained in astronomy, recorded these cycles on clay tablets, linking celestial patterns to earthly wealth. You're part of that cosmic clock now, climbing to see how the stars dictate Ur's taxes, and it's more awe-inspiring than you expected. The steps are steep, their mud brick edges worn smooth by centuries of feet, and you're panting by the third tier, gripping the tablet like a lifeline. Shamash moves like he's floating, pointing out carvings on the wall's stars, moons, gods etched in clay. You pause to catch your breath, the city sprawling below like a map of torchlit alleys and flat roofs. "How many steps?" you ask, wheezing. Shamash chuckles, saying, "Enough to please Inanna, the sky goddess." You roll your eyes, muttering, "Inanna needs a ramp." You keep climbing, the ziggurat's summit growing closer, the stars brighter with every step. Their light a silent guide over Ur's fields and taxes. You reach the top, a flat platform with a small shrine, its walls painted blue like the night sky. A clay altar holds a bowl of barley and a jug of beer, offerings to the gods. their scent mixing with myrrh from a smoldering brazier. Shamash kneels, unrolling a reed mat, and pulls out a tablet etched with star charts, wedges marking Mul Dilgan's path. He explains tonight's task: confirm the stars rising, signaling attacks due from farmers in 2 days, 20 sacks of barley per field. You squint at the horizon, where a bright speck glimmers, and mutter, "That's my tax star?" Looks innocent enough. Shamash nods, his stylus scratching the tablet, noting the star's position, a cosmic cue for Ur's scribes. You try observing, holding the tablet to mimic Shamash's wedges, but your marks are shaky, more scribble than star map. "Am no astronomer," you mutter, handing it back. He shows you how to align the tablet with the horizon, each wedge a measure of time, tying Mul Dilgan to the harvest's end. You're fascinated, picturing farmers counting sacks under this star's gaze, their grain filling the temple's stores. The ziggurat feels alive, a bridge between earth and sky, its priests turning starlight into wealth. You mutter, "This is like GPS for taxes." Shamash doesn't get the joke, but he offers you a sip of beer from the altar jug, its sour fizz grounding you under the stars. Hey, race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerian priests sometimes counted ziggurat steps as symbolic of celestial cycles, believing each tier mirrored a phase of the moon or stars. Shamash mentioned this on the climb, saying the steps walk with Inanna's light. You're skeptical, counting your aching thighs instead, and mutter, "My legs say it's just torture." The idea of stairs as a cosmic calendar is oddly poetic, and you make a mental note to count them tomorrow. Maybe see if your climb aligns with some tax-due star. You're starting to respect the ziggurat's weird math, even if your calves hate it. The observation continues, Shamash tracking other stars Mul Sapar, Mul Ninma, their wedges filling the tablet. You ask why stars matter so much, and he says they're the god's script, unchanging, guiding Ur's fields, taxes, and prayers. Without them, he warns, the city would falter, its granaries empty, its kings weak. You're awed, thinking of your market barley, your flatbread, all tied to this sky. The stars feel closer, not just lights but keepers of Ur's order. And you mutter, "No wonder they're watching my taxes." Shamash finishes, sealing the tablet with a clay stamp, its star emblem a nod to the night's work. And you're ready to descend, the city calling below. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over whether ziggurats were primarily used for astronomical observations like tax timing, or if their role was more ceremonial, with stars as a divine backdrop. Some point to tablets detailing star risings and tax dues to argue ziggurats were observatories, with priests doubling as astronomers. Others cite their religious artifacts, altars, statues to suggest rituals dominated, with star watching secondary. Historians love to debate this, analyzing tablet counts and ziggurat designs for clues. You're too busy catching your breath to care about the priest's job description, but you're grateful for Shamash's starlight, because it's making Ur's taxes feel epic. The night deepens, the ziggurat's torches flaring as you follow Shamash down, your legs wobbly, but your mind buzzing. You thank him, slipping a date from your pouch as a token, and reach the base, the city's hum wrapping around you. You think about the stars, the wedges, the barley sacks waiting to be taxed. The ziggurat, like your beer and bread, is a thread in Ur's tapestry, a cosmic stage where sky meets wealth. You head to your mat, muttering, "Stars make the climb worth it." Sleep waits, and you're ready, dreams of constellations and clay drifting in the dark. You're trudging along a dusty path toward Ur's royal palace, the early morning air cool, but heavy with the scent of barley and river mud. It's around 3000 BCE, and your days in the market, scribing tablets, and climbing the ziggurat to watch stars have left you weary but wiser. your linen kilt frayed from brushing against clay carts. The flatbread you ate at dawn is a faint memory, and now you're hauling a reed sack of barley. Your share of the tax due after Mul Dilgan's rising signaled the harvest's end. The sack's weight digs into your shoulder, and you're grumbling, muttering, "If the king wants my grain, he can carry it himself." The star's silent command to pay up is guiding you, and you're ready to hand over your dues. The palace looms ahead, its mud brick walls rising high, topped with colorful tiles that gleam in the dawn light. Ur's streets are waking, vendors setting up stalls, shepherds herding goats. The Euphrates glint a silver thread beyond the city. You're joined by other taxpayers, farmers with sacks, herders with lambs forming a loose procession toward the palace gates. A scribe, his clay tablet tucked under his arm, leads the way, his reed stylus glinting like a tiny spear. "Move along," he calls, and you adjust your sack, muttering, "This better not involve more stairs." The palace's grandeur, tied to the star's tax clock, is pulling you forward, even if your back's begging for mercy. Let's set the scene with some history. Taxation was the backbone of Sumerian society, funding kings, temples, and public works in cities like Ur. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological evidence, like clay tablets, shows taxes were paid in kind barley, livestock, while collected seasonally based on star risings like Mul Dilgan, which marked harvest times. These goods, tallied by scribes, supported the palace's wealth, feeding priests, soldiers, and workers. The system, managed by temples and overseen by celestial calendars, ensured Ur's rulers thrived, with farmers and traders like you bearing the load. You're part of that cycle now, and it's heavier than your sack. You reach the gates, their cedar beams carved with lions and stars, guarded by spearmen in leather kilts, their eyes sharp under bronze helmets. The scribe, named Naram, checks his tablet, etched with wedges for each taxpayer's dear 10 sacks of barley among them. You heft your sack forward, its grains shifting like sand, and Naram inspects it, poking with a stick to test its weight. "Good quality," he grunts, scratching a wedge on his tablet. But you're skeptical, muttering, "Hope the king likes my dirt specks too." He waves you into a courtyard, where sacks pile high, lambs bleat, and jars of oil glisten, all under the star's invisible gaze, counted 2 nights ago on the ziggurat. The courtyard is a hive, scribes bustling with tablets, overseers shouting orders, workers stacking grain under reed canopies. You drop your sack beside a pile, your shoulders screaming relief, and wipe sweat from your brow. A farmer next to you, his hands calloused, grumbles about the tax rate 1/5 of his crop, and you nod, muttering, "Stars don't care about our backs." Naram overhears, frowning, and says the stars, through Mul Dilgan, set fair dues, pleasing the gods and king. You're not convinced, thinking of your market trades, but you keep quiet, eyeing a basket of flatbreads near the scribes, hoping for a snack after this tax trek. Hey, race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerians sometimes packed tax barley in sheepskin bags, dyed red to mark royal dues, a flashy way to show the king's claim. You notice a few of these bags in the courtyard, their crimson hue standing out among plain reeds. You're amused, imagining a shepherd tanning hides just for taxes, and mutter, "Fancy bags for plain grain?" Extra. The idea of Sumerians blinging out their tax sacks is oddly charming, and you make a mental note to ask Naram if you can get a red one next time. Maybe feel like a VIP while lugging barley. You wander closer to the scribes, curious about the tally. Naram shows you his tablet, wedges marking 10 sacks for you. 20 for a farmer named Lull, 5 jars of oil for a trader. He says the ziggurats priests confirmed Mul Dilgan's rising, signaling this tax round, and scribes cross-check each delivery against star-timed records. You're impressed, picturing Shamash's star charts from the ziggurat. But you ask why the king needs so much. Naram shrugs, saying it feeds the palace, temples, and workers building Ur's walls. You think of your flatbread, maybe made from last year's taxes, and mutter, my barley's funding my lunch. Circle of life. Naram nods, his stylus scratching, and you are starting to see the stars reach into every grain. The courtyard's chaos grows, a herder arguing over a lame lamb, a trader bartering oil for leniency. You help stack a few sacks, your arms burning, and earn a flatbread from a cook, its crust chewy and warm. You nibble it, leaning against a wall, watching the tax machine churn. The palace feels like a giant stomach, swallowing your barley, your neighbor's sheep, all under Mul Dilgan's cosmic nod. You think about the market, the ziggurat, the scribe's tablets, all tied to this courtyard, this king, this sky. Taxes, you're learning, aren't just dues, they're Ur's pulse, a starry rhythm keeping the city alive. You mutter, stars make my backache worth it. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over how tax allocations were divided in Sumer and whether the palace or temples took the lion's share. Some point to tablets showing large temple halls to argue religious institutions controlled most wealth, using star-based taxes for rituals and scribes. Others cite royal inscriptions boasting of palace stores to suggest kings skimmed heavily, with taxes funding armies and feasts. Historians love to debate this, analyzing tablet ratios and storage sites for clues. You're too busy chewing your flatbread to care about the split, but you're hoping some of your barley feeds the bakers, because this bread's saving your morning. The tax delivery wraps up, Naram sealing his tablet with a clay stamp, its lion emblem glinting. You thank him, slipping a date from your pouch as a token, and head back to the market, the palace's walls fading behind you. You think about the sacks, the wedges, the stars that called them due. Barley taxes, like your beer and bread, are a thread in Ur's tapestry, a quiet tribute under the sky's gaze, fueling a city that dreams big. You sling your empty sack over your shoulder, muttering, grain makes the king worth it. The market waits, and you're ready, dreams of stars and storehouses simmering in the rising heat. You're weaving through the torchlit alleys of Ur's night market, the evening air cool and thick with the scents of roasted fish, barley bread, and river damp. It's around 3000 BCE, and your day hauling barley taxes to the palace, scribing tablets, and climbing the ziggurat has left you footsore but buzzing, your linen kilt frayed from brushing against clay carts. The flatbread you snagged at the palace is gone, and now you're diving into the market's chaos, tasked with joining merchants to trade goods under the stars that dictate Ur's taxes. You clutch a small sack of barley, your personal stash, not the king's, and a clay token for trade, muttering, if I get swindled, I'm blaming Mul Dilgan. The starlit trade game is on, and you're ready to barter. The market pulses under a canopy of stars, stalls lit by reed torches, their flames dancing on piles of wool, fish, and jars of oil. Vendors shout over the bleat of goats and the clink of copper beads, their voices sharp in the night's hum. You spot a merchant named Zuzu, a broad man with a wool cap, his stall stacked with dried dates and clay pots of sesame oil. He waves you over, his grin sly, and you settle on a reed mat, the sack at your feet. What's your trade? He asks, eyeing your barley. You offer a token, etched with a star for tax-paid grain, and mutter, hope this buys more than a date. The stars above, guiding Ur's taxes, are shaping this deal, and you're about to learn how. Let's set the scene with some history. Ur was a thriving trade hub in Sumer, its markets central to the economy around 3000 BCE. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological evidence, like clay tablets and trade tokens, shows merchants dealt in goods barley, wool, oil, Fish paying taxes based on star-timed seasons, such as Mul Dilgan's rising for harvests. These taxes, collected in kind, influenced prices and trade, with merchants adjusting deals to cover dues to the palace or temple. Markets operated day and night, with star-based calendars ensuring timely exchanges, linking trade to the celestial order. You're part of that starry commerce now, and it's more cutthroat than you expected. Zuzu inspects your token, its wedge marks showing your barley's tax paid under Mul Dilgan's watch, and nods, offering a small pot of sesame oil for half your sack. You hesitate, thinking of your breakfast flatbread, encounter with a quarter sack, hoping for dates too. Tax ate my profit, Zuzu grumbles, pointing to a tablet tallying his dues 2 jars of oil for the temple. You're intrigued, asking how stars fit in, and he explains. Mul Dilgan's rise last week set the tax deadline, so he's selling fast to cover it, driving prices up. You're annoyed, muttering, "Stars jacking up my oil?" Rude. Zuzu laughs, tossing in 3 dates to seal the deal, and you hand over the barley, feeling like you've just played cosmic chess. You try bartering at another stall, this one run by a woman named Nancy, her baskets brimming with dried tilapia and wool bolts. You offer your token and a date, aiming for a fish, but she squints, saying taxes on fish are high since Mul Sipar's rising signaled a fishing levy. You're baffled, picturing Shamash's ziggurat charts, and mutter, "Even the fish show the stars?" Nancy nods, showing a tablet with wedges for her tax, 10 fish per basket. You settle for a small tilapia, its scales dull but edible, and nibble it, the salty crunch grounding you in this star-driven market. You're starting to see taxes as a shadow over every trade, the skice wedges cutting into every deal. Hey, race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerian merchants sometimes use star risings to predict market trends, believing certain constellations, like Mul Ninma, brought good trade luck. Zuzu mentioned this, saying he sells oil when Ninma shines, expecting bigger crowds. You're amused, imagining a cosmic stock market twinkling overhead, and mutter, "Stars as my financial advisor?" Wild. The idea of Sumerians trading by horoscope is oddly modern, and you make a mental note to squint at Ninma tonight, maybe boost your next barter. You're starting to respect the market's starry instincts, even if your sack's lighter. You wander deeper into the market, torchlight flickering on stalls of copper beads, reed baskets, and clay jars. A trader offers wool for your remaining barley, but his price spikes, citing a tax due when Mul and Lil rises next week. You groan, thinking of Enki's star charts, and mutter, "Can't the stars take a break?" You pass, keeping your grain, and watch other merchants haggle, their deals shaped by tablets and taxes, all under the stars' gaze. The market feels like a dance, every trade a step in Ur's celestial rhythm, and you're learning the moves, even if your bartering's rusty. You think of your lunch flatbread, the beer jug, the fish all taxed, all traded, all starry. The market's energy shifts, vendors packing stalls as the night deepens, their voices softening. You sit on a mat, chewing your tilapia, watching a scribe tally trades on a tablet, his wedges marking oil, wool, and fish under Mul Dilgan's rule. You ask Zuzu how merchants cope with star taxes, and he shrugs, saying they raise prices or trade early, before priests come knocking. You're impressed, picturing the ziggurats priests, their star charts ruling the market's pulse. Trade, you're learning, isn't just buying and selling, it's a starry game, a balance of grain, gods, and greed. You mutter, "Stars make the market worth it." Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over how much star-based taxes influenced Sumerian trade and whether they stifled or boosted markets. Some point to tablets showing tax hikes tied to star risings, suggesting merchants inflated prices to cover dues. limiting trade volume. Others cite Ur's thriving markets and trade routes to argue taxes fueled commerce, with stars ensuring predictable cycles. Historians love to debate this, analyzing tablet prices and market layouts for clues. You're too busy licking fish salt off your fingers to care about the economics, but you're grateful for Zuzu's dates, because they're saving your night. The market winds down, torches dimming as vendors head home, their mats folded under arms. You thank Zuzu, slipping him a barley pinch as a token, and weave back through the alleys, the tilapia's taste lingering. You think about the tokens, the tablets, the stars that tax every trade. Merchants, like your bread and beer, are a thread in Ur's tapestry, a starry web of deals under the sky's gaze, keeping the city's heart beating. You sling your lighter sack over your shoulder, muttering, "Trade makes the stars worth it." The night waits, and you're ready, dreams of dates and deals simmering in the dark. You're slipping through the shadowed streets of Ur, the night air crisp and heavy with the scent of burning reeds and river mud. It's around 3000 BCE, and your day bartering in the night market, hauling barley taxes, and scribing tablets has left you weary, your linen kilt dusted with clay from market stalls. The tilapia and dates you traded for are a savory memory, but now you're heading to the ziggurats base, drawn by a low chant echoing from a temple courtyard where priests are holding a ritual to enforce tax rules under the stars. You clutch a clay token from your trade, muttering, "If this is more tax talk, I'm napping in the market." The priest's starry authority is pulling you in, and you're ready to see how the heavens rule Ur's wealth. The ziggurat looms ahead, its mud brick tiers a dark silhouette against a sky glittering with stars, Mul Dilgan's bright spark winking above. Ur's alleys are quiet, families asleep on flat roofs. The Euphrates murmur a soft undertone. You reach the courtyard, a wide plaza lit by torches, their flames dancing on a clay altar piled with barley, flatbreads, and jugs of beer. Priests in fringed robes move in a slow circle, their shaved heads gleaming, led by a high priestess named Ninhursag, her staff carved with star motifs. Workers kneel at the edges, their faces solemn, and you slide in beside your stonecutter friend, whispering, "What's the deal?" He mutters, "Taxes, gods, stars same old." You roll your eyes, muttering, "Great, cosmic paperwork." Let's set the scene with some history. Priests in ancient Sumer held immense power, linking taxation to divine will through celestial observations. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological evidence, like tablets from Ur, shows priests use star risings such as Mul Dilgan to set tax deadlines, claiming gods ordained the dues. Taxes in barley, sheep, or oil funded temples, which doubled as economic hubs, and priests enforced compliance by tying payments to sacred calendars. Rituals, often held under starlight, reinforced this order, blending astronomy, religion, and authority to keep Ur's wealth flowing. You're witnessing that celestial control now, and it's more intense than you expected. Ninhursag raises her staff, her voice clear and commanding, chanting a hymn to Inanna, the sky goddess, thanking her for Mul Dilgan's rise, which signaled last week's barley tax. The priests scatter barley grains over the altar, their golden husks catching the torchlight, and pour beer from a jug, its foam hissing on the clay. You're mesmerized, the offerings mirroring your market trades, but you lean to your friend, muttering, "They're taxing my lunch for the gods?" He nods, saying the priest's claimed stars are in Nana's eyes, watching to ensure every sack's paid. You're skeptical, picturing a cosmic tax collector, and mutter, "Inanna needs a hobby." The chant grows louder, pulling you into the ritual's gravity. You edge closer, catching Ninhursag's words. She's declaring the tax season blessed, with Mul Dilgan's light ensuring Ur's fields yield enough for king and temple. She holds a tablet, its wedges listing dues, 20 sacks per farmer, 10 sheep per herder, all due under this star. You recognize the system from your palace delivery, but here it's wrapped in divine pomp, the priests framing taxes as a sacred duty. You ask your friend why it's so fancy, and he whispers that priests use stars to make taxes feel like God's law, not just the king's grab. You're impressed, thinking of Enki's star charts, and mutter, sneaky, but it works. The altar's offerings your barley, your beer feel heavier, a bridge to the divine. Hey, race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerian priests sometimes used star-based omens to settle tax disputes, claiming constellations like Mul Dilgan revealed divine rulings on late payments. Ninhursag mentions this, holding a tablet etched with Ninma's stars, saying a farmer's shortfall was forgiven when the star dimmed. You're amused, imagining a cosmic court twinkling overhead, and mutter, stars as lawyers? That's next level. The idea of Sumerians outsourcing disputes to the sky is wild, and you make a mental note to watch Ninma tonight. Maybe dodge attacks fine yourself. You're starting to see priests as starry spin doctors, turning taxes into fate. The ritual shifts, Ninhursag breaking the flatbread, its crumbs scattered for Inanna, and passing fish to the priests, their sacred meal a mirror of your market trades. She invites you to join, handing you a piece of bread, its crust warm and chewy. And you chew, the barley's nutty taste now laced with ritual weight. Workers murmur prayers, thanking the stars for crops, and you bow your head, caught in the moment's hush, even if you're not sold on divine tax collectors. The priests distribute the altar's food bread, beer, fish to the crowd, a shared blessing under Mul Dilgan's gaze. You take a sip of beer, muttering, this is lunch with a holy upgrade. The courtyard feels like a family, bound by stars and sacrifice. You sit back, watching the priests circle the altar, their chants blending with the night's hum. Your friend says these rituals keep villagers paying, fearing the gods' wrath if taxes lag. You think about the palace, the market, the ziggurat, all linked by this starry order, priests wielding the sky to secure Ur's grain. The system's clever, turning your barley sack into a divine mandate. And you mutter, stars make taxes scarier than the king. Ninhursag's staff gleams, her authority a shadow over every trade, every meal, and you're starting to respect the priest's cosmic hustle, even if it means less grain for you. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over how much power priests held in Sumerian taxation, and whether their star-based rituals were genuine or tools for control. Some point to tablets detailing priestly tax collections to argue priests dominated, using celestial authority to enforce compliance. Others cite royal records suggesting kings set tax rates, with priests as symbolic enforcers, their rituals more show than substance. Historians love to debate this, analyzing inscriptions and altar finds for clues. You're too busy chewing sacred bread to care about the power split, but you're grateful for Ninhursag's beer because it's easing the night's weight. The ritual ends, torches dimming as workers drift home, their mats tucked under arms, the altar's offerings shared. You thank your friend, shoving the clay token deeper into your pouch, and head through the alleys, the ziggurats' shadow fading. You think about the bread, the beer, the stars that tax them all. Priests, like your market trades, are a thread in Ur's tapestry, a starry net tying wealth to the divine, keeping the city's heart beating. You reach your roof, muttering, stars make the gods worth it. Sleep waits, and you're ready, dreams of chants and constellations simmering in the dark. You're sprawled on a reed mat in a torchlit plaza near Ur Ziggurat, the night sky a glittering dome of stars twinkling above the mud brick city. It's around 3000 BCE, and your days trading in the market, delivering barley taxes, and watching priests chant under starlight have left you dusty but energized, your linen kilt stiff with river mud. The fish and flatbread you ate earlier are a savory memory, and now you're at a communal feast, celebrating the tax season's end under Mul Dilgan's cosmic gaze. The air hums with laughter, the clink of clay cups, and the rich scent of roasted lamb, making your stomach roar. You clutch a beer jug, muttering, "If the gods tax my barley, they better throw good parties." The starry feast is underway, and you're ready to dive in. The plaza is alive, packed with Ur's workers, merchants, and farmers, their faces glowing under torchlight, mats spread like a patchwork quilt. The ziggurat looms nearby, its tiers a dark silhouette, while priests in fringed robes mingle, their clay tablets tucked away for once. You spot your stonecutter friend, waving you to a mat where a group shares bowls of stew, flatbreads, and platters of lamb, its fat sizzling from the fire. "Saved you a seat," he says, tossing you a bread round. You catch it, grinning, and mutter, "This better not come with a tax bill." You settle cross-legged, the mat prickly under your thighs, and join the feast, the stars above tying Ur's wealth to this joyous night. Let's set the scene with some history. Communal feasts were vital in Sumerian society, especially in Ur, marking milestones like tax seasons end around 3000 BCE. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological evidence, like large cooking pits and food remains in Ur's plazas, shows feasts celebrated successful harvests and tax collections, often tied to star risings like Mul Dilgan. These events, funded by temple or palace stores, featured bread, beer, lamb, and fish, strengthening community bonds and honoring gods who guided the starry calendar. They reinforced social unity, easing the strain of taxes and labor, and you're part of that celebration now, tasting Ur's heart under the heavens. You tear off a piece of flatbread, its barley crust warm and chewy, and scoop up a dollop of lentil stew, thick with onions and herbs, its earthy warmth hitting like a hug. You grab a chunk of lamb, its smoky, tender flesh dripping with fat, and pair it with a raw onion slice, its sharp crunch cutting the richness. You groan, muttering, "This is why I paid my barley." You sip from the beer jug, its sour fizz a perfect chaser, passed among your group like a shared secret. The meal's a mirror of your daily bread flatbread, onions, beer but amplified, a tax-funded gift from the stars, and you're savoring every bite. The group is buzzing, voices overlapping as workers trade stories. Your stonecutter friend recounts a market deal gone wrong, outsmarted by a sly date trader, his hands waving like he's still bartering. You laugh, nearly spilling your stew, and mutter, "Sounds like my oil trade." A woman beside you, her braid heavy with beads, shares a tale of fishing under Mul Sipar's light, pulling a tilapia big as a kid. You chime in about your ziggurat climb, earning grins and a past date, its sticky sweetness a burst of joy. You're struck by the warmth, the feast turning strangers into kin, and you mutter, "Stars throw better parties than I do." Hey, race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerian feasts sometimes featured breads shaped like stars or moons, baked as offerings to celestial gods like Inanna before being shared. You notice a flatbread on the mat, its crust pressed with a star pattern, and your friend says it's from Mul Dilgan, honoring the tax star. You're charmed, imagining bakers sculpting dough like cosmic artists, and mutter, "Star bread? That's Instagram worthy." The idea of Sumerians baking celestial snacks is delightful, and you make a mental note to snag another. Maybe feel like you're eating the sky. You're starting to see feasts as starry rituals, every bite a nod to the gods. A priestess, her robe shimmering with blue threads, joins your mat, holding a clay cup etched with wedges. She raises it, toasting Inanna for Mul Dilgan's guidance. Saying the stars rise ensured Ur's taxes filled the granaries, feeding this feast. The crowd cheers, cups clinking, and you join in, your beer sloshing, muttering, "To stars, for not taxing my lamb." She explains the feast celebrates the city's wealth, collected under the god's gaze, and you see the link your barley, your trades, your tablets, all fueling this night. The priests, your learning, weave stars into every loaf, every sip, making taxes feel like a divine party, and you're grudgingly impressed, even if your sack's lighter. You lean back, mat creaking, and watch the plaza under the stars. Families share nearby, kids nibbling dates, elders spinning tales of ancient floods. A group of merchants sing a low chant, their voices blending with the fire's crackle, thanking the sky for trade routes. You try a new trick, crumbling lamb into your beer jug for a meaty broth, a tip from the market. It's rich, almost too much, and you mutter, Sumerians invented soup goals. The feast feels like Ur's heartbeat, every bite, every laugh a thread in its starry tapestry, tying you to this dusty, hopeful city. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over how frequent Sumerian feasts were and whether they were regular community events or tied to specific tax milestones. Some point to large cooking areas and feast-related tablets in Ur to suggest they happened often, strengthening social bonds after tax seasons. Others cite limited food remains compared to daily scraps to argue feasts were rare, reserved for major star risings or royal decrees. Historians love to debate this, analyzing pot sizes and grain records for clues. You're too busy chewing star bread to care about the schedule, but you're hoping for another feast soon, because this lamb's worth every tax wedge. The night winds down, torches dimming as workers roll up mats, their cups empty, their faces soft with contentment. You thank your friend, shoving a date pit into your pouch as a keepsake, and weave through the plaza, the ziggurats' shadow fading. You think about the lamb, the bread, the stars that tax them all. Feasts, like your market trades, are a thread in Ur's tapestry, a starry celebration of wealth and unity, keeping the city's spirit alive. You climb to your roof, muttering, "Stars make the feast worth it." Sleep waits, and you're ready, dreams of torches and laughter simmering in the dark. You're hunched over a low wooden table in a bustling scribe school near Ur's ziggurat, the late morning sun streaming through a reed curtain, warming the mud brick room with a dusty glow. It's around 3000 BCE, and your days trading in the market, delivering barley taxes, and feasting under starlight have left you curious but frazzled, your linen kilt smudged with clay from last night's torchlit mats. The lamb and flatbread from the feast are a savory memory, but now you're back in the school, tasked with learning how scribes use star-based math to tally tax ledgers, a skill that sounds like a cosmic headache. You grip a reed stylus, its tip damp with clay, muttering, "If this math fries me, I'm sticking to bartering." The starry numbers game is on, and you're ready to scratch your way through it. The room hums with young apprentices, their styluses scratching clay tablets, while their teacher, Inanna, the stern scribe from your last visit, paces with a tablet etched with star charts. The air smells of damp clay, ink, and the faint tang of the Euphrates drifting through the window. Inanna sets a soft clay tablet before you, its surface smooth, and points to a column of wedges taxes owed when Mul Dilgan rose last week. "Calculate," she says, her voice sharp, handing you a reference tablet with 60 base numbers. You swallow, your fingers twitching, and mutter, "I flunked modern math, and now this?" She smirks, settling beside you, ready to guide your shaky hand through Ur's starry sums. Let's set the scene with some history. Sumerians were mathematical pioneers, using a base 60 sexagesimal system for astronomy, trade, and taxation around 3000 BCE. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological evidence, like clay tablets from Ur, shows scribes calculated taxes barley sacks, sheep, oil jars using base 60 math, often tied to star risings like Mul Dilgan to mark tax seasons. This system, rooted in counting stars and lunar cycles, allowed precise tallies for temple and palace ledgers, ensuring Ur's wealth was tracked. Scribes, trained for years, etched these sums on tablets, blending math with celestial data to manage the city's economy. You're diving into that number-crunching world now, and it's more brain-bending than you thought. Inanna points to the tablet, explaining your task. Tally a farmer's tax 15 sacks of barley, 3 sheep, 1 jar of oil using base 60. Each sack is 1 unit. Sheep are 6 units, oil 10, and you need to convert them into a single sum. You stare, the wedges blurring, and mutter, "This is algebra with extra wedges." She shows you the base 60 chart. 1 wedge for 1, 10 wedges for 10, a big wedge for 60. You try etching the sum 15 for barley, 18 for sheep, 10 for oil, but your math wobbles, and your wedges look like a drunk ant's trail. I'm inventing chaos. You whisper, wiping sweat from your brow. Inanna sighs, guiding your stylist to correct the count. Her patience a small miracle. You start again, etching 15 wedges for barley, then struggle with the sheep. 3 times 6 is 18, but base 60 makes it a single wedge with a smaller mark. The oil's 10, a neat row, and you add them, fumbling to carry over 60s. Inanna explains stars like Mul Dilgan set the tax deadline, and scribes use base 60 to match the sky cycles, dividing nights into 60 parts. You're fascinated, picturing Shamash's ziggurat charts, but you mutter, "Why not base 10 like normal people?" She ignores you, saying base 60 fits the star's rhythm, making taxes precise for the gods and king. You're awed. Your tablet's wedges a tiny piece of Ur's cosmic order, and you mutter, "This is math with a side of Inanna." Hey, race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerian scribes sometimes used reed styluses dipped in beer to draw star charts on tablets, the sticky brew acting as a makeshift ink for quick sketches. Inanna mentions this, pointing to a boy smudging a star map with a beer-dipped reed, saying it's practice for ziggurat records. You're tickled, imagining a scribe brewery for art supplies, and mutter, "Beer is ink? I'm in the wrong job." The idea of Sumerians doodling constellations with their lunch brew is wild, and you make a mental note to try it. If you can sneak a jug without Inanna's glare. You're starting to see scribes as starry artists, even if their math is melting your brain. You finish your tally, etching a final some 43 units in base 60, a mix of wedges and marks that's almost legible. Inanna nods, her scowl softening, and sets your tablet to dry. It's clay hardening under the sun. You're proud, even if your hand's cramped, and ask how these sums help taxes. She says scribes convert star time dues into ledgers, ensuring farmers pay what Mul Dilgan demands, feeding Ur's temples and palace. You think of your barley sack, your market trades, all flowing through these wedges, and mutter, "Stars are my accountant now." Inanna hands you a flatbread from a basket. Its crust warm, a reward for not cracking the tablet. And you nibble it, the barley's taste grounding you. The school buzzes, apprentices whispering over their sums, the market's hum drifting through the curtain. You think about the ziggurat star charts, the palace's grain piles, the feast's lamb, all tied to this math, this sky. Inanna shows you a baked tablet, its wedges listing a village's taxes under Mul Sipar's rise, and you are struck by the system's reach, every wedge a star's command. You ask if scribes ever mess up, and she frowns, saying errors anger the gods, but priests check against ziggurat charts. You're skeptical, muttering, "Stars snitching on my math?" Harsh, But you're starting to respect the scribe's cosmic precision, even if your wedges are wobbly. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over the origins of Sumer's base 60 system and whether it was purely astronomical or adapted from earlier counting methods. Some point to tablets linking star cycles to math to argue it evolved from celestial observations, shaping tax, and trade precision. Others cite pre-Sumerian artifacts with base 60 traces to suggest it predated astronomy, with stars as a later overlay. Historians love to debate this, analyzing number patterns and star charts for clues. You're too busy scrubbing clay off your stylus to care about the roots, but you're grateful for Inanna's flatbread because it's saving your sanity. The morning ends, Inanna sending you off with a nod, keeping your tablet for the temple's archives. You thank her, slipping a date from your pouch as a token, and step into the market, the school's hum fading behind you. You think about the wedges, the stars, the barley sacks tallied under Mul Dilgan's gaze. Scribe's math, like your beer and bread, is a thread in Ur's tapestry, a starry ledger keeping the city's wealth in check. You head to your next task, muttering, "Numbers make the stars worth it." The market waits, and you're ready, dreams of wedges and 60 twinkling in the heat. You're trudging along a narrow path outside Ur's walls, the early morning sun casting golden light over fields of swaying barley, their stalks heavy with grain. It's around 3000 BCE, and your days bartering in the market, scribing tax ledgers, and feasting under starlight have left you curious but sore, your linen kilt dusted with clay from yesterday's tablet work. The flatbread and beer you grabbed at dawn are a faint fuel, and now you're out here, tasked with helping farmers measure their crops for taxes due under Mul Dilgan's starry signal. You clutch a reed measuring rod, muttering, "If I miscount, the king's getting my sandals." The weight of the farmer's celestial tax is pulling you into the fields, and you're ready to measure under the sky's gaze. The fields stretch wide, fed by canals from the Euphrates, their muddy banks glinting in the light. Farmers bend over stalks, their hands calloused, while scribes with clay tablets trail behind, their styluses glinting. The air smells of earth, grain, and sweat, with a faint hum of voices and the splash of irrigation water. A farmer named Lull, his wool cap frayed, waves you over, his face lined with worry. "Help measure," he says, pointing to a plot of barley. Its rows neat but sparse from a dry spell. You nod, gripping the rod, and mutter, "Hope the stars don't tax my math skills." You step into the field, the soil soft under your sandals, ready to tally for Ur's king. Let's set the scene with some history. Farmers were the backbone of Sumerian society, producing crops like barley that fueled Ur's economy and tax system around 3000 BCE. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological evidence, like tablets and field layouts, shows farmers paid taxes in grain, calculated based on star-timed harvests, such as Mul Dilgan's rising to mark the season's end. Scribes measured fields using standardized rods, tallying yields to set dues often 1/5 of the crop for temples and the palace. This celestial system, tied to star calendars, ensured Ur's granaries stayed full, but placed heavy burdens on farmers, who bore the labor and loss. You're feeling that burden now, and it's tougher than you thought. Lull leads you to his plot, a rectangle marked by clay pegs, and you start measuring, dragging the rod along rows, counting paces to estimate the field size. Your steps are clumsy, kicking up dirt, and you mutter, "I'm a trader, not a surveyor." Lull chuckles, showing you how to step evenly, each pace a unit in Ur's math. You reach the end, tallying 50 paces by 20, and a scribe, his tablet etched with wedges, nods, saying it's a small yield 200 sacks, taxed at 40. Lull sighs, his shoulders slumping, and you ask why it's so steep. He says Mul Dilgan's rise demands payment now, dry spell or not. And you mutter, stars don't care about droughts, huh? You help Lull cut stalks, your hands clumsy with a flint sickle, the barley sharp husks pricking your skin. This is why I stick to markets, you whisper, tossing stalks into a pile. The scribe, named Enlil, scratches wedges for each sack filled, his tablet tracking the tax under Mul Dilgan's cosmic deadline. You're curious, asking how stars set the rate, and Enlil explains, priests on the ziggurat watch stars to time harvests, ensuring taxes align with the god's will. A dry season, he says, doesn't sway Inanna's sky, so farmers pay the same. You're frustrated for Lull, thinking of your palace delivery, and mutter, gods need a rain discount. Enlil shrugs, his style is steady, and you're starting to see the sky's heavy hand on these fields. Hey Race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerian farmers sometimes prayed to star gods like Mul Ninma for better harvests, offering small clay star figurines buried in fields to coax rain. Lull shows you one, a tiny star etched with wedges, tucked near a canal, saying it's for Ninma's mercy. You're charmed, imagining farmers bribing the sky with clay, and mutter, star charms? That's peak farmer hustle. The idea of Sumerians planting cosmic trinkets is adorable, and you make a mental note to look for one. Maybe boost your own luck next tax season. You're starting to respect the farmer's starry faith, even if your hands are blistered. The measuring drags on, your rod marking more plots, each smaller than Lull's, their yields lean from the drought. Scribes tally sacks, wedges piling up, and you help load them onto a cart, its reed wheels creaking under the weight. Lull grumbles about feeding his kids after taxes, and you offer a date from your pouch, its sweetness a small comfort. You think about the ziggurats' priests, the palace's piles, the feast's lamb all built on these fields, these hands, these stars. Taxes, you're learning, aren't just grain or the farmer's sweat, a celestial burden that feeds Ur's dreams. You mutter, stars make the fields worth it. You sit by a canal, nibbling a flatbread Lull shares, its crust gritty but warm, and watch the scribes finish their tallies. Enlil says the taxes go to the temple, funding priests and workers, but Lull mutters they're too high, leaving his family short. You ask if farmers ever push back, and Enlil frowns, saying the stars will as law, and priests settle disputes with ziggurat omens. You're skeptical, picturing Ninhursag's chants, and mutter, stars as tax cops? Brutal. But you're struck by the system's grip, every sack measured under Mul Dilgan's light, binding Lull's field to Ur's granaries, its gods, its king. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over the fairness of Sumerian tax burdens on farmers and whether they sparked widespread discontent. Some point to tablets showing high grain dues, even in lean years, to argue taxes strained farmers, risking food shortages for their families. Others cite Ur's thriving fields and trade to suggest taxes were manageable, with temple aid for drought-hit farmers. Historians love to debate this, analyzing yield records and farmer complaints for clues. You're too busy wiping barley dust off your kilt to care about the politics, but you're rooting for Lull, hoping his next harvest beats the stars cut. The morning ends, the cart creaking toward the palace, scribes trailing with tablets. You thank Lull, slipping him a clay token from your pouch as a token, and head back to Ur, the field's golden haze fading behind you. You think about the sacks, the wedges, the stars taxing them all. Farmers, like your beer and bread, are a thread in Ur's tapestry, a starry burden feeding the city's heart. You trudge toward the market, muttering, grain makes the stars worth it. The day waits, and you're ready, dreams of fields and 60 shimmering in the heat. You're perched on a flat rooftop in Ur's workers' district, the night air cool, and laced with the scent of river reeds and cooling clay. It's around 3000 BCE, and your days measuring barley in fields, trading in markets, and scribing tax ledgers have left you dusty but curious, your linen kilt stiff with sweat from the day's heat. The flatbread and dates you ate at dusk are a sweet memory, and now you're gathered with neighbors, sprawled on reed mats under a glittering sky, listening to an elder weave myths about stars and taxes. You clutch a clay cup of beer, its straw bobbing, muttering, "If this story's about more taxes, I'm jumping off." The starry tales tying your barley to the gods are calling, and you're ready to hear Ur's cosmic lore. The rooftop is cozy, lit by a single torch, its flame flickering on faces worn from labor farmers, weavers, your stonecutter friend from the ziggurat. The city hums below, alleys quiet, the Euphrates murmur blending with the elder's low, rhythmic voice. She's an old woman named Eresh, her hair silver under a wool shawl, her hands tracing star patterns in the air. You settle beside your sister, her mat close, and sip your beer, its sour fizz grounding you. Eresh begins, her tale of Inanna and Mul Dilgan, the star that taxes your grain, and you lean in, muttering, "Hope this has a happy ending." The night's myths are unfolding, and you're caught in their starry spell. Let's set the scene with some history. Myths were central to Sumerian culture, linking celestial events to social order, including taxation, around 3000 BCE. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological evidence, like tablets and temple reliefs from Ur, shows myths tied stars to gods like Inanna, framing tax obligations as divine mandates. Stars like Mul Dilgan, marking harvest seasons, were woven into stories where gods demanded grain or sheep, justifying dues to temples and kings. These tales, told by elders or priests, reinforced compliance, blending astronomy, religion, and economy to keep Ur's system humming. You're hearing that blend now, and it's more gripping than you expected. Eresh's voice rises, painting Inanna, the sky goddess, crafting Mul Dilgan from her crown's jewel to watch Ur's fields. She says the stars' rise commands farmers to give barley, a gift to Inanna's temple, ensuring her favor for next year's crops. You're captivated, picturing a cosmic queen taxing your lunch, but you mutter, "Inanna's got a side hustle?" Your sister giggles, shushing you, as Eresh continues. When Mul Dilgan dims, Inanna forgives late taxes, but her wrath a drought or flood falls on those who cheat. You think of Lugal's lean harvest, his tax woes, and mutter, "Stars are tougher than the king." The myth makes your barley sack feel like a holy offering, not just a chore. You ask Eresh why stars are God's eyes, and she points to Mul Ninmah, a faint cluster twinkling low, saying it's Ninmah, goddess of grain, who counts every sack. Her myth tells of a farmer hiding grain, only for Ninmah's stars to blaze, exposing him to priests. You're skeptical, imagining a cosmic snitch, and mutter, "Stars ratting me out?" Rude. But you're struck by the story's power, turning taxes into a divine drama, making Lugals feel the stage for gods. Your friend whispers that myths keep people paying, fearing Inanna's glare, and you nod, seeing the ziggurats' priests in a new light. Their star chart's a script for Ur's faith. Hey race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerians sometimes named stars after tax gods, like Mul Gursu, linked to a deity of grain dues, believing their light blessed temple stores. Eresh mentions this, tracing Gursus' arc, saying farmers offer clay stars to it for lighter taxes. You're charmed, picturing tiny star charms like Lugal's field figurines, and mutter, "Tax horoscopes?" Sumerians were extra. The idea of naming stars for IRS gods is wild, and you make a mental note to spot Mul Gursu, maybe pray for a tax break. You're starting to love these starry tales, even if they mean more wedges on your tablet. Eresh shifts to a new myth of Enlil, the storm god, who sent Mul to time sheep taxes, demanding lambs when it rises. She says a herder once defied Sapar, and Enlil's winds flattened his flock, a warning carved on temple tablets. You think of the palace's lambs, your market trades, all under star deadlines, and mutter, Enlil's got anger issues. The crowd murmurs agreement, some sipping beer, others praying softly to Sapar for mercy. You share your jug with your sister, it's straw soggy, and feel the myth's weight. Every star a tax collector, every tale a nudge to pay up. The rooftop feels like a stage, Ur's fields and granaries lit by these divine stories. You lean back, the mat creaking, and watch the stars, Mul Dilgan's glow sharp above. You think about the ziggurats' priests, the palace's sacks, the feast's lamb, all spun into Eresh's tales, making your taxes feel like a cosmic pact. You ask your friend if myths are true, and he shrugs, saying they keep Ur's order, true or not. You're impressed, picturing Ninhursag's chants, and mutter, stories tax better than scribes. The myths, like your beer and bread, are a thread in Ur's tapestry, a starry lore binding fields to gods, keeping the city's heart beating. You sip your beer, muttering, stars make the myths worth it. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over how deeply Sumerian myths influenced tax compliance, and whether they were priestly propaganda or genuine beliefs. Some point to tablets linking stars to gods' dues to argue myths were tools, crafted to enforce payments with divine fear. Others cite widespread star worship in art and graves to suggest Sumerians truly saw taxes as sacred, their myths reflecting faith, not just control. Historians love to debate this, analyzing temple texts and ritual finds for clues. You're too busy sipping beer to care about the spin, but you're grateful for Eresh's tales, because they're making the sky feel alive. The night deepens, the torch dimming as neighbors roll up mats, their cups empty, their faces soft with stories glow. You thank Eresh, slipping a date pit into your pouch as a keepsake, and climb down to your room. The rooftops hum fading. You think about the stars, the myths, the barley sacks taxed under Inanna's gaze. Star tales, like your market trades, are a thread in Ur's tapestry, a cosmic script tying wealth to faith, keeping the city's spirit strong. You settle on your mat, muttering, myths make the stars worth it. Sleep waits, and you're ready, dreams of gods and grain twinkling in the dark. You're weaving through the flickering torchlight of Ur's night market, the cool evening air thick with the scents of roasted tilapia, barley bread, and the faint damp of the Euphrates nearby. It's around 3000 BCE, and your days measuring crops, scribing tablets, and listening to starry tax myths on a rooftop have left you dusty but eager, your linen kilt frayed from brushing against market carts. The flatbread and beer you grabbed earlier are a distant fuel, and now you're diving back into the market's chaos, bartering goods under the stars that set Ur's tax deadlines. You clutch a small sack of barley and a clay token etched with a star, muttering, if I get ripped off, Mul Dilgan's getting an earful. The starry tax trade is humming, and you're ready to haggle. The market pulses under a sky glittering with constellations, stalls crammed with wool, fish, dates, and clay jars, their vendors shouting over the bleat of goats and the clink of copper beads. You spot a trader named Shulgi, a wiry man with a braided beard, his stall stacked with dried figs and bolts of dyed wool. He waves you over, his eyes sharp as a scribe's stylus, and you settle on a reed mat, your sack at your feet. What's your offer? He asks, eyeing your token, proof your barley's tax paid under Mul Dilgan's cosmic nod. You flash it, muttering, hope this buys more than a figure. The star's tax rules are shaping this deal, and you're about to play the market's game. Let's set the scene with some history. Ur's night markets were vibrant economic hubs in Sumerian society around 3000 BCE, where trade thrived under star-timed regulations. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological evidence, like tablets and trade tokens from Ur, shows merchants bartered goods, grain, wool, oil, fish, paying taxes based on celestial calendars, such as Mul Dilgan's rising for harvest dues. These taxes, set by priests observing stars, influenced market prices, with merchants adjusting deals to cover temple or palace levies. Night markets, lit by torches, extended trade into the evening, syncing with star-based schedules, and you're part of that starry commerce now, navigating its hustle under the sky's gaze. Shulgi inspects your token, its wedges confirming your barley's taxed, and offers a handful of figs for a quarter sack. You balk, thinking of Lugal's lean harvest, and counter with half that, aiming for a wool scrap too. Taxes ate my figs, Shulgi grumbles, showing a tablet listing his dues: 3 bolts of wool for the temple, due when Mulsapar rises. You're curious, asking how stars affect his trade, and he explains, Mul Dilgan's tax deadline last week forced him to sell fast, hiking prices to cover the levy. You're annoyed, muttering, stars inflating my figs? That's low. Shulgi chuckles, tossing in an extra fig to close the deal, and you hand over the barley, feeling like you've wrestled a cosmic vendor. You move to another stall, run by a woman named Ishtar, her baskets brimming with dried tilapia and clay jars of sesame oil. You offer your token and a fig, hoping for a fish, but she shakes her head, saying fish taxes spiked since Mul Ninma's rise signaled a fishing levy. You're baffled, picturing the ziggurats star charts, and mutter, even the fish are star taxed? Ishtar nods, pointing to a tablet with wedges for her dues: 5 fish per basket. You settle for a small tilapia, its salty crunch a market win, and nibble it, thinking of Eresh's myths, the stars watching every trade like divine accountants. You're starting to feel the sky's grip on every stall, every deal. Hey, race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerian night markets sometimes time their peak hours by star risings, with vendors like Shulgi opening when Mul and Lil appeared, believing it drew bigger crowds. Ishtar mentions this, saying in Lil's light brings fat purses. You're amused, imagining a cosmic happy hour twinkling overhead, and mutter, stars as market clocks? Wild. The idea of Sumerians syncing stalls to constellations is oddly clever, and you make a mental note to spot Mul and Lil, maybe catch a deal before it fades. You're starting to respect the market's starry rhythm, even if your sack's shrinking. You wander deeper, torches casting shadows on stalls of copper beads, reed mats, and jars of honey. A trader offers oil for your remaining barley, but his price is steep, citing a tax due when Mul Gursu rises next week. You groan, recalling Eresh's tale of Gursus grain god, and mutter, can't the stars chill with the taxes? You pass, keeping your grain, and watch other merchants haggle, their deals shaped by tablets and taxes, all under the stars' silent rule. The market feels like a starry chessboard, every trade a move in Ur's celestial game, and you're learning the rules, even if your bartering's shaky. You think of your feast's lamb, the ziggurats' chance, all taxed, all traded, all starry. The market's energy peaks, vendors shouting as crowds thicken, their voices a hum under the stars. You sit on a mat, chewing your tilapia, watching a scribe tally trades on a tablet, wedges marking figs, wool, and fish under Mul Dilgan's ring. You ask Ishtar how merchants handle star taxes, and she shrugs, saying they barter early or slip extra to priests for leniency. You're impressed, picturing Ninhursag's altar, and mutter, sneaky, but starry. Trade, you're learning, is a dance with the sky. Every deal a step under Inanna's gaze, balancing profit and divine dues. You sip your beer, muttering, markets make the stars worth it. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over the scale of Sumerian night markets and whether star-based taxes boosted or burdened their trade. Some point to tablets detailing high tax dues tied to star risings to argue they raised prices, limiting market growth. Others cite Ur's vast trade networks and market finds to suggest taxes fueled commerce, with stars ensuring stable cycles. Historians love to debate this, analyzing trade tokens and stall layouts for clues. You're too busy licking fig juice off your fingers to care about the math, but you're grateful for Shulgi's figs, because they're sweetening your night. The market slows, torches dimming as vendors pack stalls, their mats rolled under arms. You thank Ishtar, slipping a barley pinch into her hand as a token, and weave back through the alleys, the tilapia's salt lingering. You think about the tokens, the tablets, the stars taxing every deal. Night markets, like your bread and beer, are a thread in Ur's tapestry, a starry web of trades under the sky's rule, keeping the city's pulse strong. You climb to your roof, muttering, deals make the stars worth it. Sleep waits, and you're ready, dreams of figs and starlight simmering in the dark. You're slipping through the torchlit courtyard of Ur's great temple, the night air cool and heavy with the scent of burning myrrh and river reeds. It's around 3000 BCE, and your days bartering in night markets, measuring barley in fields, and hearing starry tax myths have left you weary but intrigued, your linen kilt dusted with clay from market mats. The tilapia and figs you traded for are a savory memory, and now you're here, invited to observe how the temple collects taxes under the stars' celestial oversight, a process that feels like a cosmic bank heist. You clutch a clay token from your last trade, muttering, if they tax my token, I'm hiding under a mat. The temple's starry wealth is calling, and you're ready to peek into Ur's sacred vault. The temple sprawls beside the ziggurat, its mud brick walls painted with blue and gold stars, its cedar gates carved with lions and moons. Ur's alleys are quiet, families asleep. The Euphrates murmur a soft hum under the chatter of priests and scribes. You're led by a priestess named Ninhursag, her fringed robe shimmering, her staff etched with Mul Dilgan's wedges. She guides you into a vast hall, lit by oil lamps, where clay jars of oil, sacks of barley, and wool bolts pile high, guarded by spearmen in leather kilts. Watch, she says, her voice low, pointing to scribes tallying taxes under torchlight. You nod, muttering, this better not involve more math. The star's divine ledger is unfolding, and you're caught in its glow. Let's set the scene with some history. Temples were economic powerhouses in Sumerian society, collecting and managing taxes in cities like Ur around 3000 BCE. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological evidence, like tablets and temple storerooms, shows temples received taxes barley, livestock, oil, well based on star-timed seasons, such as Mul Dilgan's rising for harvest dues. Priests, guided by celestial calendars, oversaw these collections, claiming divine authority from gods like Inanna to fund rituals, scribes, and public works. Temples doubled as banks, storing wealth and redistributing it, with star-based records ensuring accuracy. You're witnessing that sacred economy now, and it's grander than you imagined. Ninhursag leads you to a storeroom, its walls lined with clay jars sealed with star-stamped lids, each holding oil or beer. Sacks of barley tower, they're weaved tight, while wool bolts stack neatly, dyed red for royal use. You're awed, thinking of Lugal's fields, your market trades, all flowing into this vault. A scribe, his tablet etched with wedges, Tallies of farmers do 30 sacks under Mul Dilgan's tax call, and you recognize the system from your field work. You ask why temples get so much, and Ninhursag says Inanna's stars demand it, feeding priests, workers, and the gods' altars. You're skeptical, muttering, Inanna's got a bigger pantry than me. She smiles, pointing to a jar, offering you a sip of beer. Its sour fizz a taste of the temple's wealth. You follow her to a counting area, where scribes inspect goods under lamplight, their styluses scratching tablets. A herder delivers 10 lambs, their bleats echoing, and a scribe marks wedges for Mul Sipar's sheep tax, confirmed by ziggurat priests. You try tallying a wool bolt on a practice tablet, your wedges wobbly, and mutter, "ID bankrupt the gods with this." Ninhursag corrects your grip, saying scribes train years to track starry taxes, their tablets a divine ledger for Ur's wealth. You're impressed, picturing Shamash's star charts, and mutter, "This is accounting with a halo." The temple feels like a cosmic vault, its riches guarded by Inanna's light. Hey, race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerian temples sometimes decorated storerooms with star-shaped clay tiles, believed to bless the wealth with celestial favor. Ninhursag points to a wall, its tiles gleaming with Mul Ninma's pattern, saying they honor the grain goddess. You're charmed, imagining priests tiling a bank with starry bling, and mutter, "Star decor? Temples are extra." The idea of Sumerians jazzing up their vaults with cosmic art is delightful, and you make a mental note to look for a tile, maybe as a lucky charm. You're starting to see temples as starry showrooms, even if your barley's in their jars. The counting continues, scribes tallying oil jars, barley sacks, and copper beads, each wedge tied to a star's rise. You ask Ninhursag how temples use it all, and she says they feed scribes, repair canals, and offer to gods, ensuring Ur's prosperity. You think of the feast's lamb, the market's figs, all sourced from these stores, and mutter, "My taxes are the VIP guest here." A farmer grumbles nearby, saying taxes leave him short, echoing Lull's woes, and you feel a pang, wondering if stars care about empty bellies. Ninhursag's staff gleams, her authority a starry mandate, and you're starting to grasp the temple's grip every sack a prayer, every wedge a god's due. You sit by a lamp, nibbling a flatbread from a priest's basket, its crust warm and nutty, and watch the scribes work. A trader delivers wool, his tablet showing Mul Gursa's tax, and you recall Eresh's myths, stars watching every deal. The temple's wealth feels alive, a river of grain and oil flowing under Mul Dilgan's gaze, feeding Ur's heart. You ask your friend, lingering nearby, if temples ever cheat, and he whispers that priests claim Inanna's stars see all, but rumors swirl of hidden jars. You're curious, muttering, "Stars snitching on priests? Spicy." But you're awed by the system, its starry ledgers binding fields to gods, keeping Ur's dreams grand. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over how efficiently Sumerian temples managed tax wealth and whether they hoarded or redistributed fairly. Some point to tablets showing temple aid grain for drought-hit farmers to argue they balanced wealth, guided by starry fairness. Others cite large storeroom finds to suggest priests amassed riches, skimming for rituals or allies, with stars as divine cover. Historians love to debate this, analyzing storage jars and distribution records for clues. You're too busy chewing flatbread to care about the audits, but you're hoping some barley feeds Lull's kids, not just Inanna's altar. The night shifts, scribes sealing tablets as priests dim lamps, the courtyard emptying. You thank Ninhursag, slipping a date pit into her hand as a token, and slip through the gates, the temple's glow fading. You think about the jars, the wedges, the stars taxing them all. Temples, like your beer and bread, are a thread in Ur's tapestry, a starry vault holding the city's wealth under Inanna's gaze. You climb to your roof, muttering, "Stars make the temple worth it." Sleep waits, and you're ready, dreams of vaults and starlight simmering in the dark. You're skulking through a shadowed alley on the outskirts of Ur, the midnight air cool and thick with the scent of river mud and smoldering reeds. It's around 3000 BCE, and your days measuring crops, trading in night markets, and watching temple tax halls have left you dusty and restless, your linen kilt frayed from brushing against clay walls. The flatbread and beer you ate at dusk are a faint comfort, but now you're here, drawn by hushed whispers to a secret meeting of tax resistors questioning the starry levies that drain their barley. You clutch a clay token from your last trade, muttering, "If this gets me arrested, I'm blaming Mul Dilgan." The rebels' starry defiance is pulling you in, and you're ready to eavesdrop on Ur's underbelly. The alley opens to a small, torchlit courtyard, hidden behind a crumbling mud brick wall, where a dozen figures huddle on reed mats, their faces tense under the starlight. Ur's city core sleeps, the ziggurats silhouette a dark bulk against a sky glittering with Mul Dilgan's glow. You spot your farmer friend Lull, his hands calloused from fields, and slide beside him, keeping low. "What's this?" You whisper. He mutters, talk of taxes, stars, trouble. A leader, a wiry herder named Gudea, stands, his voice low but fierce, railing against the temple's levees set by star risings. You're nervous, muttering, "This is spicier than market gossip." The rebels' murmurs rise, and you're caught in their risky plot. Let's set the scene with some history. Tax resistance was a recurring tension in Sumerian society, including Ur, around 3000 BCE. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological evidence, like tablets recording disputes and royal decrees, shows some farmers, herders, and traders resisted high taxes barley, sheep, will set by star-time calendars, such as Mul Dilgan's harvest dues. These levies, enforced by priests claiming divine authority, funded temples and kings, but strained rural producers, especially in lean years. Small rebellions, often hushed, challenged the system, questioning its starry mandates, though harsh penalties kept them in check. You're witnessing that defiance now, and it's bolder than you expected. Gudea paces, his wool cloak swaying, saying the temple's tax 20 sacks per field under Mul Dilgan's rise is too heavy after a drought. He claims priests use stars like Mul Ninma to scare farmers, not guide them, hiding grain for their own feasts. You're shocked, thinking of Ninhursag's storerooms, and mutter, "Stars as a scam?" That's a plot twist. Lull nods, whispering he's short 10 sacks, and Gudea's words echo his fears taxes leave families hungry while temples gleam. You recall the feast's lamb, the temple's jars, and feel a pang, wondering if the star's divine order is as fair as priests claim. The crowd murmurs agreement, their fists clenched, and you're starting to see the cracks in Ur's celestial system. You ask Lull why they risk rebellion, and he whispers that stars don't grow barley, but priests act like they do, taxing beyond reason. Gudea pulls out a clay tablet, stolen from a scribe, its wedges listing dues higher than last year's, despite the drought. He says Mulsapar's sheep tax took half his flock, leaving his kids without milk. You're curious, picturing Shamash's ziggurat charts, and mutter, "Stars taxing lambs?" That's cold. Gudea proposes hiding grain, delaying payments until priests ease up, a plan that sounds brave but dicey. You're torn, thinking of Inanna's myths, and mutter, "Defying stars sounds like poking a god." The courtyard's tension crackles, and you're glad you're just listening. Hey Race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerian rebels sometimes used star symbols, like Mul and Lil's cluster, as secret signs for resistance, carving them on clay to mark safe meeting spots. Gudea shows you one, a tiny star etched on his tablet's edge, saying it's in Lil's storm, a call to fight unfair taxes. You're intrigued, imagining a cosmic graffiti tag, and mutter, star emojis for rebels? Iconic. The idea of Sumerians using constellations as protest art is wild. And you make a mental note to watch for Enlil's mark, maybe spot a rebel hideout. You're starting to admire their starry nerve, even if your token's staying in your pouch. The meeting grows heated. A farmer arguing to confront priests at the ziggurat, another urging stealth to avoid spearmen. Gudea calms them, saying stars like Mul Dilgan, tied to grain gods, can't see hidden sacks buried by canals. You think of Lull's field star charm, Eresh's myths, and mutter, hiding from Inanna's eyes. Bold. Lull admits he's tempted, but scared priests use omens to sniff out rebels. And a failed revolt means losing his land. You share your beer jug, its straw soggy, a small comfort, and feel the rebels bind stars tax their grain, but defying them risks everything. The courtyard feels like a powder keg, and you're glad you're not signing up. You lean against the wall, nibbling a flatbread from your pouch, its crust gritty but grounding, and watch Gudea rally the group. He says the stars are tools, not gods, and priests twist them to hoard wealth, echoing your market gripes with Shulgi's high prices. You think of the temple's jars, the palace's lambs, all under Mul Dilgan's cosmic nod, and mutter, stars are the real bosses here. The rebels plan to meet again, hiding grain until priests lower dues, a flicker of hope in their eyes. You're moved, picturing Lull's kids, but wary, knowing Ninhursag's chants carry Inanna's weight. Resistance, you're learning, is a starry gamble, a tug of war with the sky. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over the scale and impact of tax rebellions in Sumer and whether they threatened the state or were minor grumbles. Some point to tablets detailing disputes and punishments to argue rebellions were small but frequent, driven by high starry taxes in lean years. Others cite Ur's stability and temple wealth to suggest resistance was rare, crushed by divine fear and spearmen. Historians love to debate this, analyzing complaint tablets and royal decrees for clues. You're too busy sipping beer to care about the stats, but you're rooting for Lull, hoping his hidden sack dodges the star's glare. The meeting scatters, rebels slipping into alleys as the torch dims, the courtyard emptying under Mul Dilgan's light. You thank Lull, shoving your token deeper into your pouch, and slink back to Ur's core, the ziggurats glow fading. You think about the tablets, the stars, the grain taxed under Inanna's gaze. Rebels, like your beer and bread, are a thread in Ur's tapestry, a starry spark of defiance under the sky's rule, challenging the city's order. You climb to your roof, muttering, rebels make the stars worth it. Sleep waits, and you're ready, dreams of hidden sacks and starlight simmering in the dark. You're perched on a low hill just outside Ur's walls, the evening sky a deep indigo canvas studded with stars, Mul Dilgan's bright spark winking above the city's mud brick silhouette. It's around 3000 BCE, and your months in this ancient Sumerian world trading in markets, measuring barley, scribing tablets, climbing ziggurats, and hearing rebel whispers have woven you into its dusty, vibrant heart. You are holding a flatbread, its barley crust gritty from the temple's stores, paired with a dried fig traded in the night market. As you chew, the flavors spark memories of every task, every tax, and you're reflecting on how Ur's starry tax system shaped a legacy that echoes into the modern world. Stars ran this city better than I did. You mutter, smiling, ready to trace this cosmic thread across time. Ur sprawls below, its torchlit alleys humming with vendors closing stalls, families sharing flatbreads, the Euphrates glinting like a silver vein. You think about the taxes that fueled it, barley sacks from Lugul's fields, wool bolts from market trades, lambs tallied under Mul Dilgan's rise, all guided by stars like Mul Dilgan. Each wedge on a scribe's tablet, each chant on the ziggurat, each myth from Eresh's rooftop was a piece of Ur's machine fields. Markets, temples, rebels all synced to the sky. You've lived that cycle, from sowing to taxing, trading to feasting, and now you see its shadow in the future, in calendars, math, even the minutes ticking on modern clocks. My barley's got a long resume. You whisper, tearing off a bread chunk, its taste a link to eternity. Let's ground this in some history. Sumer's star-based tax system, rooted in celestial observation, left a profound legacy that shaped civilization beyond 3000 BCE. This is the mainstream history bit. Archaeological finds, like tablets and star charts from Ur, show Sumerians used a base 60 system, tied to star and lunar cycles, to tally taxes and time, influencing mathematics, astronomy, and administration. Their cuneiform records, tracking barley under Mul Dilgan's rise, pioneered writing, while their ziggurat observations laid groundwork for Babylonian and Greek astronomy. The base 60 system lives in our 60-minute hours, 360-degree circles, a quiet Sumerian gift to modernity. You're tasting that legacy now, and it's deeper than your flatbread's grit. You think back to the moments that defined your journey. The first flatbread you ate, baked from taxed barley, now feels like a cousin to modern pita. Its chewy soul born in Ur's ovens. The beer you sipped, timed by stars, hints at ancient brews that shaped Middle Eastern fermentation, maybe even your craft IPA back home. Your market trades, taxed under Mul Ninma, mirror bazaars still thriving in Baghdad, where haggling carries Sumer's spark. The ziggurats star charts, etched by Shamash, echo in telescopes scanning the sky today, their math rooted in Ur's wedges. Even Gadia's rebel whispers, defying starry taxes, feel like early cries for fairness, a seed of modern tax debates. Am living in a cosmic sequel, you mutter, chuckling, as you nibble your fig, its sweetness a nod to Ur's markets. You shift on the hill, Ur's hum rising goats bleating, scribes arguing, priests chanting to Inanna. You think about the temple's jars, the palace's lambs, the field's barley all taxed by stars, all building a city that dreamed big. You know Sumer's legacy lives in Mesopotamia's later empires, in Akkadian star maps, Babylonian math, even Roman timekeeping. The base 60 system, born to count Mul Dilgan's tax seasons, ticks in your watch's seconds, divides your pizza slices. The cuneiform you scrawled with Inanna, recording taxes, birth scripts that wrote history's first laws. You imagine a modern accountant, crunching numbers, or an astronomer, charting stars, and mutter, Ur's still running the show. Hey race, a quirky fact for you. Sumerians' base 60 timekeeping, used to track star time taxes, inspired the modern 60-second minute, with early clocks mimicking their starry divisions. Eresh once mentioned counting night hours by Mul and Lil's arc, a trick you now see in your digital clock's tick. You're tickled, picturing Sumerians inventing minutes over barley sacks, and mutter, my commute's taxed by Ur's stars. Sneaky. The idea of ancient scribes shaping your daily schedule is wild. And you make a mental note to check your watch tonight. Maybe thank Mul Dilgan for the hustle. You're starting to love Sumer's starry fingerprints, even if they're on your taxes. You think about the rebels, the priests, the farmers' Lugul's drought, Gadia's defiance, Ninhursag's altar, all under the star's rule. Their system, blending math, faith, and grain, built Ur's ziggurat, its markets, its myths, a legacy that outlasts mud bricks. You see your scribe's wedges, your market figs, your field rod, all reborn in modern ledgers, bazaars, farms. The myths of Inanna, taxing fields with Mul Dilgan's light, echo in stories of order and duty, from Babylon to today's tax forms. Sumer stars, you're learning, didn't just tax, they sparked a world of numbers, time, and tales. You mutter, we're all Sumerians when we count. Let's talk about the historical debate. Scholars still argue over how much Sumer star-based systems directly influenced later cultures versus blending with others, like Akkadian or Egyptian traditions. Some point to consistent base 60 use in Babylonian tablets to argue Sumer's math and astronomy were foundational, carried by trade and conquest. Others cite diverse counting systems in neighboring cultures to suggest Sumer's impact was diluted, with stars as a shared motif. Historians love to debate this, analyzing number patterns and star charts for clues. You're too busy chewing flatbread to care about the mix, but you're grateful for Ur's stars, knowing they're twinkling in your clock's tick. The stars brighten, you are softening below, its torches fading into firefly sparks. You finish your fig, brushing crumbs from your kilt, and think about the city's fields, its tablets, its ziggurat, all under Mul Dilgan's gaze. You've tasted their labor, their faith, their genius for turning stars into wealth. You see Lugal's hands, Shulgi's deals, Eresh's myths, all living in every minute, every ledger, every starry night. You're full, not just of bread but of connection, a sense that you've touched a cosmic river flowing from Ur to forever. You lie back, the Euphrates hum lulling you, ready for one last dream of stars and taxes. And so, you rest on that hill, the Euphrates' gentle ripples singing a lullaby as the stars weave a blanket over Ur. The taste of flatbread lingers, gritty and warm, like a whisper of the city's fields, the hands that reaped, the stars that taxed. You feel the weight of their story, a tapestry of barley, wedges, and starlight, stretching from this ancient clay to distant clocks, where minutes tick in Sumer's rhythm. The ziggurat fades, its shadow soft in the dusk, and you're drifting now, held by the quiet hum of the river, the soft promise of tomorrow's grain. Let the stars watch over you. Let the fields sleep. Let the world turn gently as you sink into peace. Good night, traveler. May your dreams be as bright as Mul Dilgan's glow.